morning, folks. Welcome back to Three's In. This morning I'm going to start with a reading from the book of Sam on a mission he flew on November 6th, 1967. So hang on, here we go. The date was November 6th, 1967. The target was the An Bay storage area located on the northwest side of Hanoi, and it was a morning strike. The strike force consisted of 16 F-105 aircraft from Karat Thai Air Force Base, assembled in 4 flights of 4 flying together in the pod formation. Excuse me. The strike force refueled from KC-135 tankers over the Gulf of Tonkin. After drop-off, we flew north to an island east of Hanoi, then turned west toward the target. The ingress route passed just north of Gilam Airport and well north of the city of Hanoi. To get to An Bay, we had to fly beyond Hanoi and further west. It was going to be a long run-in to the target. As expected, we received heavy fire from the ground and saw many missiles directed toward the formation. As number 4 in the lead flight, I was about 1,000 feet north of my lead aircraft and about 1,000 feet above them. My job on ingress was to hold position in the flight and look south for enemy threats. As we passed north of Gilam, I could see a radar-controlled gun sight on the east side of the runway firing at us. It was a large sight with a ring of guns. When the guns were fired, it looked like a ring of fire. A few seconds after the guns fired, we would have lots of flak explode around the formation. I decided I was going to get that sight on the way out with the Gatling gun. Now, the airfield was off the target list. We were prohibited from hitting anything on the airfield. The North Vietnamese knew these rules and figured they could protect the guns by locating them on an off-limits target. However, the rules of engagement, ROE, did allow us to strike a gun sight that was firing at us, even if it was located on a prohibitive target. As we were passing Gilam, the missiles started coming up, and there were multiple missiles in the air until we rolled in for the bomb drop. I saw one missile launch at my 10 o'clock position and called it out. Right away, it looked like it was coming for me. I called the missile coming into our flight, selected afterburner, and pushed over into a dive. I went down maybe 4,000 feet while watching the missile. It did not change course, so I pulled back into my assigned position. It was not coming after me. Okay. This missile, when I look up at the camera, I lose my place. Sorry about that. This same missile was going to pass maybe 500 feet below my nose. I rolled left to watch it and then rolled back right to see it heading away. I rolled back just in time to see it hit the man to my right, number 2 in the second flight. I saw a huge fireball larger than the F-105 had hit. To me, it looked like it hit the bottom nose from about the 10 o'clock low direction. For what seemed a significant period of time, the entire aircraft was buried in the fireball, but it had only been a split second or so. Then the F-105 came out of the fireball, still looking like a complete aircraft. It seemed like I watched it for seconds, but it couldn't have been that long. Then the left wing dipped a bit and it started sliding down toward me. I lifted the nose and it seemed to slide under me. The pilot in that airplane was Robert Warren Hagerman, and I will have more to say about him in another story. But in that one instant, I watched Robert Hagerman die. Other guys said the missile exploded before it hit him, but I was the guy next to and below him, and I have an image burned in my mind of that explosion on the nose of his aircraft and a fireball much larger than that 67-foot aircraft. For most of the run-in, Robert was much further away from me, as much as a half a mile. But as we were getting close to the roll-in, So the second flight, but we were getting close to the roll-in, so the second flight was moving in close to my flight to set up for the roll-in. If they had not closed up, they would have likely been shallow on the bomb run. But it was still a surprise when I rolled right to watch the missile, and there he was right next to me and slightly above me. Shortly after Robert passed under me, we were at the bomb roll-in. The strike force leader did a great job getting us to the roll-in. I went full afterburner, made a roll over the top before pulling the nose down to the target. I wanted to be at a 50 to 60 degree dive angle, accelerating to 650 knots, 1.0 Mach at the 6,000 foot bomb release point. I rolled out, set the throttle at minimum afterburner, and lined up the gun sight below the target. It was still a clean target when I released, as none of the bombs had yet reached the ground. I always noticed that at bomb release, the airspeed was at 650 knots, and I was just slipping through the Mach, supersonic. Once I felt the bombs leave the aircraft, I came out of afterburner and pulled back as hard as I could. The pullout was at least 7 Gs, as I could see the wings arc up in a smooth curve. As soon as the nose approached the horizon, I selected full afterburner, unloaded the backstick for a hard left roll, and pulled around hard. I was just in time to see my bombs detonate on the target. It was a good run with bombs on the target. Now I had something else to do. I came around to an easterly heading about 4,000 feet, still in max power. The aircraft was now running between 740 and 760 knots, depending on how much turning and jinking I was doing. I set the weapon and gun sight switches to guns ground. I was going to get that gun sight at Guillaume, and I was going to fire the entire load, 1,000 rounds, in one pass. This was not going to be a simple task. I would be running at 760 knots, almost 900 miles per hour, in a 30 to 40 degree dive. I would be traveling about 14 miles a minute or 1,300 feet per second. The gun would fire for about 10 seconds, so I would cover 13,000 feet in the time the gun was firing. I needed to start firing at least 3 miles from the target. It was easy to find the target, as it was on the east side of a large airfield. I was still in max power, running at 760 knots when I started a left roll to the target. The angle looked good, the speed was building, and I started firing. For all that was going on, things were smooth and the noise was not remarkable. The big J-75 was still at max power, the burner at max power. The Gatling gun was heaving out 20 millimeter cannon shells at 100 rounds per second, and the F-105 was running at Mach 1.2. Then things changed. There was an enormous explosion, and the nose pitched up violently and to the left. The gun seized. The master caution panel seemed to light up with all the warning lights. The air turbine motor failed, along with the loss of utility hydraulic pressure and the AC electrics. All the primary instruments failed, and the main attitude indicator froze. I thought I'd taken a mortal hit, and unfortunately announced that on the radio. I planned to come off the target to the right, and in a few minutes I'd be over water in safety. Now I was coming off to the west with what seemed to be a seriously damaged aircraft. I came out of afterburner and came the long way around to the east. Once heading east and running a lot slower than I wanted, I started assessing the situation. First, I tried to restart the air turbine motor, and it started up just fine. The ATM was a turbine engine located just forward of the instrument panel. It was driven by engine bleed air and turned at 48,000 RPM, so it was easy to tell when it was running. You could hear it running. Also, I could see the utility hydraulic pressure come back to 3,000 psi. Next, I reset the AC generator, and it worked fine. The instruments started working, and all the warning lights went out. Everything was working. I went back to full afterburner and accelerated through 700 knots and headed home. Out in the Gulf of Tonkin, I joined up on the assigned tanker and took a few jibes from the guys asking me why I was there and how did I fix the aircraft. I did not say much. As best I could figure, the gun gases were going into the left intake, which caused the engine to compressor stall. This caused the ATM to drop offline, leading to failure of the AC generator and the utility hydraulic pump. When the utility hydraulics failed, the gun stopped, and that instant stoppage caused the nose to pull up to the left. Of course, there is the possibility that the shock fright of the compressor stall might have caused a little unplanned pull on the stick. There I was on the tanker with all systems running fine. I took on plenty of fuel, so all I had left to fly was 400 miles back to Korat. I needed that time as I had a few things to think about. First, the sight of the missile killing Robert Hagerman was an image and an event I would never forget. Then there was the excitement and drama that occurred on the strafing run on the gun site. I indeed had a lot to think about. Thanks for your story, Sam. See ya.